So the question is specifically, so children and marriage. So it's not really related to romantic love per se. It's just more so like marriage. Okay. He has a section on that, and he also answers it, I think, quite a bit in the Q&A book, so the follow-up book. First, I would say that something I read the other night when I was rereading it for like the third time is that a lot of people, they feel obligated first and foremost to have children. So that's another thing that, religions have like ingrained people to do. Well, like you guys have heard here even, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, and then you fucking repeat the process forever and ever and ever. You make more of this kind of religion, or more of that one, or more of that one, more little offspring to populate it, and then to feed the coffers, or whatever they call it. I would say that having children is a huge responsibility, and that any sort of obligation that you should have children at all to begin with is just deeply antithetical to taking full responsibility for what you're about to do to make another human life. The same is also true then with marriage, as I discussed. And then, yeah, as far as being obligated to get married just because you decided to have kids, let's assume that someone decided to do so rationally and fully aware of everything that was going to entail. Yeah, I think it's something you should fight against. I think you should disagree with it. I disagree with it. You should speak out against it. That just because you have a child, then you automatically have to get this legal contract for it. I don't think so. I think there are ways around it. I think that even if there's consequences to not getting married, it's worth fighting those. It's worth disagreeing with them. It's worth paying whatever the short-term prices are. 18 years later, when they're an adult, it's not going to matter. So I'd say, yeah, stay away from the obligation, that supposed duty that people make up for you, that society makes up, that you just have to get married just because of you get in love, or just because someone told you to, or just because you had kid pop out, or whatever. Don't do it unless you're fully ready to do it, I'd say. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Anthony.
Oh.
So with marriage, like when you say psychological age, you have to be mature enough to go into it.
That's another thing too. Yeah, the marriage rates are like, the failure rates, as they call them, are like astronomical for getting married in your early 20s. It's like 98% you get divorced. It's huge.
So like,
sorry to interrupt.
What sort of, like at what point would you say, what psychological age?
I mean, you should question in the first place whether you even want to get married at all. Is it necessary or is it even beneficial? I'm pretty skeptical. As far as it like being like a legal contract specifically, I think that you can have a lifelong, if you want, this is what you want. If you want some lifelong relationship with another woman that's deep and that's intimate and that's fulfilling, I mean, that can last 50 years or more, and you don't have to get married. I think it's just something you've been told and you've seen in like 1,000 movies and TV shows that you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to fucking do this. It's not true. Now, will women be aware of that automatically off the bat? No. I mean, women in particular seem obsessed with like weddings and marriage and dresses and like what the fuck else. Yeah, you should, gently educate or nudge her to question these things if they're really of value to her. If they so happen to be, so be it. But only when she is like fully aware that, she's been fed this fantasy since she was fucking 2. And just things like that. Yeah, you should. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm kind of just rambling here. Yeah,
right,
again,
Anthony,
stay away from the duty, the obligation.
We're short on time. There's one more question.
We should have actually a few minutes.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, but we are short on time. We're about 30 minutes behind.
That's right, we started a little bit late. Okay.
Okay, mine's a quick one, I think, anyway.
Shoot.
I just wanted to touch on something you covered near the start. It's, are you saying that there's no benefit to a monogamous relationship?
No, not at all. Yeah, I hope I didn't start that off too non-exclusive. I think monogamous relationships are great. That's what I had with Marilee up there, the redhead. Yeah, I think there's actually a speaker here that is very in support of monogamous relationships. Not at this event, but at the Texas convention this year, named Greg Swan. So, in my opinion, most people are actually going to benefit the most from a monogamous relationship. But I don't think it's going to be everyone. I think that's kind of what I was hinting at, is that there will be segments of the population where guys just don't want that. I think I know some. Well, they'll never be happy and truly happy for the long haul in a monogamous relationship. But I think that's the exception. I think most people will benefit from that, from a lifelong partner who you are sexually attracted to, physically attracted to, a lot. And that can last over a lifetime. It might not be as intense as it was when you were like 21, 50 years later, but it's possible. I think that's certainly something you can attain. That's an ideal. That's achievable. And that, yeah, it can be done. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Monogamy is, I think, great. But, yeah, it's not going to be for everyone. So, anyone else?
All right,
More?
yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit more on common law?
I'm only familiar with it as it's practiced in the U.S. It depends on which state you live in the United States out of the 50.
The reason I ask is because it seems like it's the same thing as marriage. So why not get married if it's the same thing? Just to keep everyone else happy.
Oh, well, what I was getting at in the speech is that you should be careful of common law. You should find out about it and then avoid it. Because it's not in Florida, but other states, if you just live with a girl and pay the bills together for like 7 years or whatever, you're automatically married. Automatically. You don't have to say in the matter. That's kind of what I was getting at to stay the hell away from. You need to watch for that and stay out of it. Rather than, just staying away from it. Just, again, well, in that case, it's an obligation that's forced on you, unknowingly. But, well, what's your question exactly? I'm kind of losing train of thought here. Sorry.
Well, he was asking about common law marriage, which is mainly an American thing, and it's different
Yeah.
from state to
I wonder if it
state.
exists in Australia. Does anyone know? Yeah, so he just said they have in Australia de facto relationships that build after 7 years. It's like in a lot of states. 6 months. Fuck that. God, you guys are fucked, man. Sorry.
In some U.S. states, it's 6 months.
In some U.S. states, 6 months. So yeah, it's something to be. No, I would say no. I would say find a way, move, get away, run. I'm sorry, man. I know you like where you live or something. Yeah, there must be a way around it. In the U.S., I think there's things you can do in certain states where you can, if you write out explicitly that you don't want this, I think you can avoid it. So it's not always going to be forced on you. It's just kind of, it happens to a lot of people unknowingly. And then they break up with their girlfriend, and all of a sudden they have like this court or judgment against them to lose half their shit. So just be aware. That's kind of, this whole convention, a big part of it, is being more aware and being conscious in your life and looking for stuff like this that are bad arrangements people before you set up and that you just get sucked into without knowing it. So watch out for things like that. There's a lot of things in life like that if you don't pay attention, people will suck your soul dry. And this is one of them. If you don't want marriage, and you get forced into it, that's just horrendous. I think it's a tragedy. That's an abomination. So, even if you have to move, I don't know, man, fucking move. It's worth the hassle. It's worth the fight, because someday I think that can be defeated. That can be changed. We don't always have to live like that. You can win that fight. Things like that are horrible, I think, can be reversed if you fight hard enough.
All right, guys, let's give it up for Anthony Johnson.
Thanks, guys.
And